Hello and welcome. This is episode number 10 of Cricket World Cup Rewind. Also our final segment and final episode of this series. That's because we've now reached 2019, the last 50-over World Cup that we all saw. We're building up to 2023, but this particular World Cup in 2019 was unique for one very interesting fact. That is, for the very first time, we were going to see either New Zealand or England be crowned champion of a World Cup after a 44-year history that this tournament had. Both these teams had been to finals but had not got their hands on the trophy. That was going to change in this World Cup, but what was not going to change is how India performed, because once again, it was that semi-final hurdle that India could not cross. So we'll look back at that entire journey. I'm Nikhil. With me, as always, Rajdeep Sardesai.
Hi there.
Rajdeep, like with most World Cups, this World Cup for India started with one major controversy. I don't know if you remember, but it was that number 4. This is that debate that we are having right now in 2023. Who's going to be India's number 4? This was a debate that happened in 2019. It was all started because there was a player who was batting at number 4 leading up to that World Cup. His name was Ambati Rayudu. And suddenly, Ambati Rayudu, who comes from Hyderabad, is dropped from the World Cup squad, and you suddenly have a Vijay Shankar who's picked. Interestingly, the chairman of selector at that time is someone who comes from Andhra Pradesh in MSK Prasad, and that became a major talking point ahead of the World Cup.
Nikhil, every World Cup throws up one or two selection issues. We spoke earlier about VVS Lakshman and how he wasn't in the team for 2003. Dinesh Mongia was included and really was not in Lakshman's class. Ambati Rayudu was not in Lakshman's class, but was a very, very good white ball player. So there's a mystery as to why he was dropped, because he had excellent T20 records. He also was performing well in 50 overs. So no one quite knows, why he lost out. We actually, interestingly, Nikhil, I think had a fantastic top 3 who are still with us. Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul, Virat Kohli. And I believe at that time, at least 2 of those 3 were at their peak. So in a strange way, when your top 3 are so strong, you sometimes forget you also need 4, 5, 6. So you've got, I think India's problem as they went into that World Cup is that they had these 3 terrific batsmen, but were never quite sure what came after number 4. And I think eventually that would cost India, but what a top 3. When I look at their numbers, each of them got, Rohit Sharma gets over 600 runs, you've got Virat Kohli with over 400 runs, and KL Rahul with more than 350 runs. Together, they score more than 1,400 runs, and probably, most of your team's runs. That's a remarkable record.
Yep.
So just in terms of your top 3, I don't think we've seen a better Indian top 3 perform at a World Cup as Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul and Virat Kohli, particularly Rohit Sharma, the man from Mumbai.
Well, that's true, but that is not India's first choice top 3. India's first choice top 3 is a Shikhar Dhawan, Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli. There is no KL Rahul there. Of course, Shikhar Dhawan, as we'll talk about it later, gets injured during the tournament after getting 100, not short of 100. I think he got that 100 in versus Australia, and after that he gets injured. But the problem started from number 4, and you said, nobody really knows why is it that they decided not to have Ambati Rayudu. I think MSK Prasad was asked about it as to why did you, just out of the blue pick Vijay Shankar, and he famously quotes in that press conference says, because he's a 3-dimensional player, he can field really well, he can bowl and he can bat. And promptly after that press conference is over, Ambati Rayudu takes to Twitter, puts a tweet out where he says, I'm just looking for my 3D glasses to be watching the World Cup at home. So Ambati Rayudu, another fiery character, fires that particular salvo. Then you get into the World Cup and you say the top 3 were outstanding. Rohit Sharma had a great World Cup, but that jolt that I'm talking about, Shikhar Dhawan, Rohit Sharma, you remember, in England in 2013 helped you win the Champions Trophy. Once again, they're doing really well. You're playing some big teams. South Africa first up, just as you had it last time around. You beat South Africa. Rohit Sharma gets you 100. The game against Pakistan, once again, you win that game. And then comes that game versus Australia. I'll go to the Pakistan game, but it's that game against Australia where Shikhar Dhawan gets 100, but gets hurt on his finger and then is ruled out. Which time, then you need to push KL Rahul to come out and open.
let's talk about India-Pakistan.
Ah.
You know, because the World Cup and this is the struggle India has. You invest so much in India versus Pakistan. All our attention is on, we've got to beat Pakistan. Forgetting beating Pakistan doesn't mean winning the World Cup. And I think that is going to be an issue even in 2023. All attention on Ahmedabad. I'm now part of a Indo-Pak WhatsApp group, which I've got you also on. Yeah. We've got Pakistani cricket supporters and Indian cricket supporters on a WhatsApp group. And everyone's attention will slowly grow towards who wins between India and Pakistan, being played in Ahmedabad before possibly, arguably, what will be the biggest ever crowd at a cricket match. And the same thing in this World Cup. It's a good Indian team, but I think all attention was once again on that India-Pak match. And when Rohit Sharma plays an innings of a lifetime, there are two sides to Rohit Sharma. He can be the hitman and just, hit sixes at will. And he can be this smooth operator, silken touch. And there is one shot that he plays, a straight drive that I remember in that match against Pakistan. It just is poetry. Rohit Sharma's 140 is as good as it gets. And I'm going to say something which might sort of astound cricket watchers. I think Rohit Sharma in 2019, Nikhil, played better than any Indian batsman, including the great Sachin Tendulkar, has played in a World Cup. Tendulkar 96-99 was terrific. There was that over that Tendulkar played of Magra in Mumbai that I won't forget, the kind of shot making. But over an entire World Cup, tough to beat Rohit Sharma in 2019. He was at the peak of his powers. And when you score 140, as he did against Pakistan, you score more than 330, you knew the Pakistanis were in trouble. They had some good players, including Babar Azam, who we were all sort of looking forward to watch. But I remember I had just finished the 2019 elections. So I was dog-tired and I was looking forward to sort of raise my voice, and we were sitting in a bar in Mumbai, and with every shot that Rohit played, the sort of crescendo within the bar was special. It was a very special innings, a special match.
I think that was the only thing that was special about that game. Out of all the India-Pakistan encounters, I think this is the one that you'll remember the least, just because of no competition offered from Pakistan. But you're right. I mean, you say that probably the best sort of campaign for any Indian batter in a World Cup, you put Rohit Sharma right on top. The numbers don't disagree at all. He got 500s. No other player, not even the great Sachin Tendulkar, had got 500s in a World Cup. In fact, now, as things stand right now, he's got a total of 600s in World Cup, which is tied for most alongside who? Sachin Tendulkar. So 5 of them came in this particular World Cup. What I remember, apart from his outstanding batting and hundreds, he got hundreds against big teams. He got 100 against South Africa, Pakistan, as you talk about, Bangladesh. He got 1 against Sri Lanka. So he got some very notable hundreds. But I remember a couple of things from that World Cup were his press conferences. So there is one where he gets 100 against England as well, the 5th that I was forgetting. One is after that Pakistan game, you talk about at 140, he comes and he's asked a question by a Pakistani journalist that, you completely outplayed Pakistan. The batting is really not matching up. If you were to give an advice to this Pakistani batting lineup to help them improve, what is that one advice that you will give him? And he, in his typical Bombaiya casual style, he said, "जब मैं पाकिस्तान का कोच बनूंगा, तब बताऊंगा, अभी क्या बताऊंगा?" And that comment became, viral.
He does have a dry sense of humor.
He does.
He gives you the impression at times that the game comes so easy to him that, he's very languid, almost like an Inzamamul Haq used to be. But there's a lot of effort in Rohit Sharma. One of the undying memories I have of Rohit Sharma, and I must share this, my late father, in, I think, 2005-06, before Rohit plays for India, I think Rohit was playing under 19 or under 17. And my father used to get very excited with young talent. And he used to go to the Maidans of Mumbai looking for young talent. He gets a call from someone saying that, we want you to come and watch this player. He goes, sees him, and he calls me up and says, I've seen the next big thing from Mumbai. And I still have a photograph with me of my father teaching Rohit Sharma how to keep the elbow in the right place. And there's this young Rohit Sharma looking at him. And I almost felt like telling my father, there are some cricketers so natural, brimming with such natural talent. You don't really need them to be coached.
Yeah.
You just need them to be guided. Rohit was one of them. My late father was very excited about him. Got that right. Rohit went in 2007, if you recall, to playing the T20 World Cup that we won. Then had a period where he didn't really fulfill his potential. But I think 2019 is when it all came together for Rohit Sharma. It just was brilliant watching him bat throughout that tournament and possibly doing those press conferences.
Yes, the other bit about the press conferences I remember, so India are cruising in this World Cup. They've won every game that they've played. Remember, the format of this World Cup is back to the format that we saw in the 1992 World Cup, the format that most people enjoyed. You went back to that format in 2007, a different one, people weren't happy. You changed it from there on. 2011, last time around we spoke, you still had the quarterfinal, semis and then the final. So you got away with the quarterfinals. You said, okay, 10 best teams reached the World Cup and 8, because of their ranking, 2 had to go through qualifications. So it was West Indies and Afghanistan that qualify as team number 9 and 10. Round robin, the 4 best team will then play the semi-final. In that round robin, India win every game, barring 2. One against New Zealand, washed out, and then the game against England. What's interesting, Rajdeep, at that time is that, you know, we were talking about how dominant Australia were. They were one of the strongest teams. And last World Cup, we spoke about how in that semi-final, India were good, but then they came across the team that was the best in the tournament and Australia won. 4 years later, I get a feeling at the time that it's the Indian team that's intimidating the Australian team. I watched a documentary many years later that Australia has made, and then you get to hear behind the scenes. So there is this World Cup match that I'm talking about, India versus Australia, and Justin Langer is the coach, there's Steve Smith, there's Pat Cummins and all of them. And you get to hear in the dressing room and they're saying, you know what, we're up against India and this is a side of superstars. We don't know. You get a Rohit Sharma, there's a Shikhar Dhawan, you get a Shikhar Dhawan, there is a Virat Kohli, there is a KL Rahul, even a young Hardik Pandya coming up. So they are in awe of this Indian team, and you could make that out when they're playing on the field, that India at this moment is one of the strongest ODI teams, maybe led by that captain who's very confident, who's very aggressive in Virat Kohli, and they are in awe of it because of what they've seen Virat do in Australia. So this is the one team that they beat, but the only team that's not intimidated by the Indian team. So as I mentioned, New Zealand is washed out. The only team that's not intimidated, the one that is pushing the boundaries of white ball cricket is England. And the only loss that India have in that World Cup or in the round robin is to the English team.
You know, you mentioned pushing the boundary, and you will see through the World Cups, the teams that push the boundaries, that innovate, often end up either winning or coming close to winning the World Cup. We mentioned New Zealand in 1992. We mentioned New Zealand again in 2015. Sri Lanka in 1996. Of course, the great West Indians in 75 and 79. These were teams that were at times willing to take the risks by going beyond the boundary. And England did that. I still remember that opening partnership. I was in Goa watching that match. You know, sometimes you remember where you're watching matches. England, we watched in Goa, lots of friends around, and we were hoping that we'd win. But that opening partnership, Jason Roy, David Best,
Johnny
Bairstow and Jason Roy, they had the ability to set the tone and the narrative of a match. Because when you've got two players who, you know, can hit boundaries and sixes at will and are willing to take those chances, it just gives you momentum. England had momentum from that match. That match actually turned England's fortunes as well. England were, you know, had lost to Australia, their nemesis, and it appeared, were they once again not going to fulfill potential? Then comes India, and these two guys go hell for leather and change the tone of the English side. So I think there's a lesson in that World Cup for all teams, that if you want to win a World Cup, make sure you have those 2 or 3 players who can really change the rules of the game. And England did that.
Oh, that's true. As Rajdeep mentions, probably that particular win that England got versus India was the catalyst, because they were in a precarious position. It did seem like at one point that they'll miss the bus when it comes to the top 4. However, from there on, they go on to win all their games handsomely at that. But that equation of top 4 is getting very interesting, because India losing to England meant that Australia most likely were going to top the table, which meant that everyone wanted to avoid England because they'd suddenly gotten into some good form. So So Indian fans were hoping that, India get to finish on top. India had done whatever they could, one washout, one loss, but it was now in the hands of the Australian team to finish on top. The last game was against South Africa. You'd say that that'd be a tough game, but that World Cup, South Africa underachieved. They weren't great. In fact, they finished 7th on the points table out of the top 10 team. And guess what? They pull off a miracle against Australia in that final league game, win by 10 runs. It's a humdinger of a match. It's a very close contest. What that does is there are jubilations, celebrations in India, because India now go top of the table. And you know why you're happy? That we're not going to be facing England. We're facing New Zealand in the semi-final. So we're pretty much certain of playing the final. It is semi-final time. India versus New Zealand in the first semi-final of the 2019 World Cup. India, the clear favourites. They've topped the league table. And New Zealand, really, they've been a bit under the radar. They've had some decent performances. And interestingly, India and New Zealand haven't played in this World Cup. That game got washed out. Now you're in Old Trafford. You're in Manchester. New Zealand bat first, 200, and this is a game that goes over 2 days. New Zealand bat first. They're about 211 in 47 overs. Rain comes. Luckily, there were reserve days for all the knockout games. You come back next day, the 3 overs are bowled. New Zealand get a middling total, I'd say, of 239. And you think India, with that famed batting lineup, has got it under control. So put the champagne on ice and we'll pop it open very, very shortly. And then there is a passage of play of 15 minutes and India are 5 for 3. Your famed top 3 are all sitting back in the hut.
The fact is that in England and particularly in Manchester, it is often what happens in the skies above that decides games, not always what happens on the ground. Because you've had a reserve day, you go out to chase that total. It's a slightly greyish skies. You've got in Trent Boult, arguably one of the finest, if not the finest, left-arm swing bowler of his generation. A bit like Wasim Akram was in his generation. Give him a wicket where the ball is moving, he is a deadly fast bowler. So you've got the Indians, unfortunately, being made to bat in not exactly helpful conditions. Had they got through those first 10, 15 overs, things could have changed. And when you are so dependent on those great top 3, Rohit Sharma, KL Rahul and Virat Kohli, and you're 5 for 3. And there is that LBW decision of Virat Kohli.
Yes,
that could have gone either way. You see, this is what DRS does. Too close to call. Umpires call. Virat Kohli, honestly, when I first saw it, I thought out. Purely as a cricket watcher, my first reaction, Virat's out. But as it turns out, when the ball is swinging, it could have just, been a marginal call. The umpire, had he given him not out, Virat Kohli would have still been on the crease. And who knows what a Virat Kohli would have achieved. So it's those small margins that make a huge difference. Plus, you had Dinesh Karthik come into the side. Again, injuries make you force you to make that change. Dinesh Karthik, bless his soul, been there for a long time, is a very talented technician in many ways, great finisher, but wasn't the man to take you to a World Cup final in my view. So I think it was unfortunate that the weather played a role. New Zealand in those conditions were just the side. They just would have, if there were any other part of the world, in England also, you'd think India had the better chance chasing 230 odd. In Manchester, cloudy skies, didn't quite make it. 5 for 3, tough to come back from that.
Yes, you were 5 for 3. From there on, it became 24 for 4, if I'm not mistaken. From there on, there is a bit of a partnership between Hardik and Rishabh Pant. Rishabh Pant, who's been called on as a replacement in the middle of the tournament. He looks good against that swing bowling because, at that time, you'd looked at Rishabh as a dasher of sorts, but he looked very comfortable against swing bowling. But then you lose your wickets. You're 92 for 6 in 30 odd overs, chasing 240. It looks highly unlikely. Actually, Raja, because you talk about the sky, it takes me back so many years to 1983. Same ground, India versus West Indies. It's the first game for India in that tournament. And in that particular game, I'm just looking at the parallels. That game, India bat first. It's nice and sunny and you get a good enough total on board. I think Yashpal Sharma is the top scorer. But then there's rain, you come back in the reserve day, and then there are overcast conditions, and the Indian bowlers make merry and dismiss West Indies, win that game. This time around, the shoe was on the other foot, so India this time are batting, and your top order is gone, you're 92 for 6. From there on though, there is this partnership, 100-run plus stand between an MS Dhoni, a sedate MS Dhoni, but a very aggressive, attacking Ravindra Jadeja. Are you confident then that India can pull it after the way Jadeja is batting?
I remember where I was when that was happening in the India Today canteen. And we were sort of, glued to our chairs because look, Ravindra Jadeja post 2015 is a very different cricketer, particularly in the last 5 years. You've seen the emergence of Ravindra Jadeja as a quality batsman. When Jadeja is on the crease now, he'll get runs. And he's in good form. Dhoni understands the game perfectly in 50 overs, knows you've got to take it to those last 5 overs, anything can happen. So as long as the two are there, I would have said there was advantage India, even though the run rate had started to climb and the fact was there was not much batting after this. The two of them had given us every chance to win. And even in those last couple of overs, Dhoni is there, you almost feel, as long as Dhoni is there, you're going to win the game. Not realizing that there can be something that no cricketer can really combat, and that's age. I think, and I say this again worryingly, there's never been a faster runner between the wickets than Mahendra Singh Dhoni. In fact, I'm told that within team, the races, he's the fastest that they have. Now, the last thing you want is Mahendra Singh Dhoni in his last 50-over World Cup game to get run out. A bit like Javed Miandad, very few cricketers could run as quickly as Javed in the Pakistan team in his pomp. He gets run out in his last innings for Pakistan, 1996. Now you've got Dhoni, all eyes on him, couple of overs to go, he's in form. Will he be able to take you over the line? And then you have the run out.
Well, were you hopeful? 37 needed of 18 balls. That's when Jadeja is out. Because till that time, MS Dhoni has just hit one boundary in the 40-odd that he's got. Jadeja is out, and I think MS then hits a 6, gets to his 50, 37 of 18, maybe not, you don't know. And then it's 25 of 11. That's when he gets run out. There are two schools of thought. By
Brilliant throw, Martin Guptill.
Yes, it was.
Absolutely amazing, top-class fielding.
But two schools of thought. Many thought that the game was anyway done and dusted. From there on, MS Dhoni, 25 of 11, maybe not. Then there are others who think he's done it in the past. He's pulled off miracles. 25 of 11, he could have done it.
But that's where I think sometimes as cricket fans, we forget that when you're in your pomp, 25 out of 11, you'd think Dhoni can do it. This is Dhoni in the autumn of his career. And that's when you think, maybe even at his best, he wouldn't have pulled this off. It's a good New Zealand bowling attack and a brilliant fielding side. The one reason I believe that New Zealand has always overperformed, they've always had one great batsman, Kane Williamson in this case. And in fact, this World Cup actually began to sort of showcase, every team had one batsman, standout batsman. In the case of, and of course, in Ben Stokes, a standout all-rounder of a kind that I don't think England has had since the great Ian Botham. But New Zealand had a terrific fielding side, and they had a very, very mature captain in Kane Williamson. So sadly, it was a bridge too far for India in the end.
I was one of those who thought that MS Dhoni could do it because sometime looking at him, you know that he knows what the situation is. He's got something in the reserves. He's planned it all. His mind's working like a computer. So he knows, as you mentioned, the run out was unfortunate. But the interesting bit is, with MS Dhoni, a lot of these decisions are taken impromptu, like we spoke about his test retirement last time around. That's a decision he took after the test match was over in the middle of the series. But what I got to know much later, reading one of the books that was written by the Indian trainer at the time, MS Dhoni knew that that was going to be his last game because he sits at the breakfast table and he's asked that, there are a few cars available, you want to go to the ground in the car? He says, no. This is probably the last time I'm playing for India. So I mean, he's hoping that you reach the final, but he also has this in his mind, in case we lose this game, this will be my last game. So he's pretty much made up his mind. He tells them, no, I want to travel in the team bus, because it could probably be the last time that I'm going to be playing for India. And so he knew that. So that run out, I'm guessing when he's walking off the field, he knows that's it. That's it. That's the final walk wearing those India colours.
As it turned out to be for Javed Miandad as well in 96. So I'm just trying to draw some parallels. This was a World Cup in many ways that had parallels with earlier generations, with one big difference: England. You know, they in the first World Cup, they believed they would win 1975, not realizing that they were playing the all-powerful West Indies. 79, finalists. Yes. Finalists again in 1992, then have a very disappointing World Cup in 2015. And I think by 2019, they've sort of, under Morgan's leadership, have changed the way they're going to play the game. And with Bayliss as their manager, they have a little bit of an Australian way to look at the game. I think they were by far, to my mind, they were the best team of that World Cup by the end. They had all their bases covered. But they also played a New Zealand team that was terrific in that final. And frankly, just for the final, New Zealand deserved to win. For the life of me, I want to understand Ben Stokes.
I'll get to that. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's quickly tell our viewers where the final is. Okay, we're heading into the final. Rajdeep's led us nicely into that final. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about the New Zealand inning. They get 241 for 8. That at best, once again, is a middling total. You think at
below
Lord's,
average.
Below average, 241. England are not in a great position. They are 84 for 4, if I'm not mistaken. And you think, no, this is going to be a close battle. It's topsy-turvy. Things keep moving. At every different situation, you're thinking New Zealand are ahead. At other points, you're thinking England are ahead. Then there is this partnership between Ben Stokes and Jos Buttler, a century-plus stand, 110 if I'm not mistaken. And they take you almost to the cusp of victory. And you think England have got it under control. But then there are a few twists and turns towards the end. Final over. And if you think why we've reached the final over so fast, because that's where the action begins. Final over, 15 needed for England to win. Ben Stokes, someone who's born in Christchurch in New Zealand, playing against New Zealand. Where do you see the game then from there on?
I thought, and I'm coming to that throw from the boundary line.
Yes.
With England struggling at that particular moment, needing about 9 or 10 out of 3 balls left.
So I'll quickly tell you how it happened. 15 needed of the final over.
Yes.
Bolt has been given the ball. First 2 balls that he bowls, dot balls.
Yes.
Okay, so now suddenly 4 balls, 15 runs.
Yes.
Ben Stokes smashes a 6.
Yes.
So it comes down now. Next one is another 6 because of that overthrow, right? They run 2 runs, but because of the overthrow, hits the bat of Ben Stokes. The 4th ball, it goes for overthrow, and that is 6 runs. So 12 runs.
That is my problem. That 6 runs that was given. The ball is being thrown from the boundary line, hits Ben Stokes' bat, and goes for 4.
Yes.
You could have given 5, as some umpires believe you should have, since he had run 1 and hadn't completed the second. The other is that you give 6. The other view is controversial. The English should have said, sorry, we don't want to take. I know that.
No, you can't do that.
1 minute.
Technically, you can't do that, Rajdeep. Had it been the ball had not crossed the boundary, let's say it stopped short of boundary, England then could have refused not to run. That I'm not going to run. It's come off my bat. But the fact that it's hit the bat and gone past the boundary, you have no option but to signal a boundary.
I know, but the next time the English tell you, when an Ashwin runs you out, with your batsman not in the crease, it is within the rules of the game.
I agree. But Ashwin has a choice not to do it.
Could the umpire, and this has been contentious, I know that 5 runs I think was the right thing to do. Yeah. Could the umpire have said, dead ball? Possibly not. Ideally he should have. I believe the rules of the game should change. That if I throw a ball, hits the batsman on the bat and goes there, you're getting an unfair advantage in my view. I think the rule should be re-looked at.
Agreed.
That 1 ball cost New Zealand the game. Before that, one more thing.
Yeah.
The over before, Trent Bolt is at the boundary.
Takes the catch.
And unfortunately doesn't know exactly where the boundary line is and goes over. Fine margins. But when the ball, to my mind, no one has come closer to winning a World Cup final and losing than New Zealand in 2019. And they were the Cinderella team. I love watching Kane Williamson bat. I love the New Zealand way of life. They are very understated. I wanted them to win.
No,
Sorry.
But they are your sentimental favorite, Rajdeep. And
They
I'm
are.
with you. I would have also wanted New Zealand to win. But you can't change the rules. For example, that bold catch, he was trying to relay it back to Guptill, if I'm not mistaken. But he did cross over the line. So
That's
no option
okay.
to make it a 6.
No, that's okay.
Similarly, in the case of that ball hitting the bat, you would want the rule to change. But you can't be changing the rule as soon as it happens on the field. So
Why
technically...
6 runs? Why not 5?
I mean, there could have been an argument over that, but I think the umpires looked at giving the runs anyway. One run here and there, maybe in hindsight, but you had to give
one
the
run made all the difference.
If you saw Ben Stokes, he actually stands up and apologizes. He doesn't do it intentionally. He's not looking at the ball and does it. He just dives to reach his crease.
Agreed.
And the throw just happens to hit his bat and then goes across
But
the
Nikhil,
boundary.
last ball to go, you need 2 runs to win.
Yes.
Ben Stokes could have taken 2 options, which is interesting. Either you play the big shot and go for the 4, or you push to the deep and run 2. As it turns out, they tried to do take the second option, and Rashid is run out. And therefore, you have a tie. For the first time, a World Cup ends in a tie, and you have a super over. And then you have a super over where once again, you have, dare I say, a tie.
Yes.
Which is bizarre, which is crazy.
So,
and I think, to be fair, I think the English played the super over well, but so did the New Zealanders.
They did.
They should have played, they should have had a second super over.
Do you know who summed up that bat situation very well? I read it at a couple of social media handles. They said, let it be known as Diego Maradona had the hand of God. Let it be known as the bat of Stokes, sort of an incident. It was divine intervention. No one really intended to do it. It just happened to hit the bat, went for a boundary. You go to the super over, 15 runs is what England get. They send Ben Stokes and Butler out, so they should have, because they were the 2 standout performers. 15, you seem is a good enough total. But then once again, New Zealand, could have finished it. They had Jimmy Neesham, Martin Guptill. I think Neesham hits a 6.
He hits a 6.
But Guptill there, the hero who would get MS Dhoni run out, interestingly, it was Guptill's throw that hit Stokes' bat and goes for 4. He tries his bet, but towards the end, Archer actually makes a comeback, Jofra Archer. Here's a young Jofra Archer, makes a comeback and ensures it's a tie. And by the way, all of us were in confusion. The Kiwi team knew that what they needed to do was get 1 more run because they were shot on the boundary count. Such is the rule. Such is life.
Think of the bizarreness of it all. You lose a World Cup final on a boundary count. I had no clue of the boundary count rule.
Neither did I.
Maybe there were others out there who didn't. And the truth of the matter is, if you have tied scores, play another over. What's the problem? It's like sudden death.
I'm with you.
If the 2 teams at the end of a super over are tied, for God's sake, play another over. It's another 10 minutes, another 20 minutes of great excitement, great drama. So I believe, I'm sorry to say this, Nikhil, the New Zealanders were robbed. England are the world champions. Good luck to them. But in my heart, the New Zealanders won the 2019 World Cup.
But there was nothing done which was beyond the rules. Everything happened within the rules that were specified, laid in front of both the teams. They knew, the Kiwis knew that they needed to get 1 extra run. They tried for it and they were run out. Joss Butler gets them run out. And in the end, with celebrations, Rajdeep talks about maybe playing another over. I'm maybe in agreement with him. But if you remember, it was getting dark. And that's the day, and it's probably 14th of July, if I'm not mistaken, one of the greatest days in sporting history, because there is a Novak Djokovic and a Roger Federer fighting it out in Wimbledon in the same city. And it goes to a 5-setter. There are match points that Novak Djokovic saves. There is a Formula 1 Grand Prix on the outskirts of London. So same city is hosting 3 of the greatest events, 3 of the most exciting events. But I'd have to agree that the Cricket World Cup final had to be the most exciting, even ahead of that Wimbledon final that we saw.
It was one of the greatest days that you would ever see in sport. For me, it was depressing. I wanted Roger to win. He loses after having match points on his serve. And New Zealand, which was my favorite team, the team I had gone with my heart to, loses to England. But that's life. And I'll tell you one more thing that's life. I actually had tickets for that final. And I was threatening to fly down. But then I realized India's not in the final. Is it the same deal? and I said, let's save a little bit of money on the air tickets. I didn't go. And I didn't go and watch the greatest World Cup final that we've ever seen.
I'll sum it up in the words of Ian Smith. His commentary became legendary at that final, and he said, England win the World Cup by the barest of margin. That particular piece of commentary has gone viral. You could check it out even now on social media. One of the best pieces of commentary. And he's standing and he's, shouting in excitement. This, as the action is unfolding in front of him. There's also Nasser Hussain and Ian Bishop sitting next to him. But I'm afraid that's all the time that we have on this episode. In fact, that's all the time that we have on this particular series.
Well, the game goes on.
You wanted to add something, Rajdeep?
No, the game goes on. I just hope that 2023 throws up as exciting a final as 2019. That would truly be the icing on the cake.
I hope you enjoyed watching this series as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. For the
Namaskar.
moment, bye-bye. See you.
What a great day for Indian cricket.